So back in October, I started the Amphibia Retrospective of Season 1, and I said that while not the best season, it doesn't get the credit it deserves, with it having its own unique feel, expertly introducing us to this world, and these characters knowing exactly how much information they give us at certain moments, and just how much to hold back until later. Now we talk about the next season of the show, what many would call the best season of Amphibia. Amphibia Season 2. Amphibia Season 2 is a season I love, with fantastic episodes, great characters, funny jokes, and one of the best villains in animation history. Season 2 of Amphibia is one of my favorite seasons in all of animation television, alongside Avatar The Last Airbender Season 3 and Assassination Classroom 2. We can gush about Season 2 as we go along. For now, let's get into the short history lesson on Season 2's pre-release. The premiere date of Season 2 was announced on June 23, 2020, alongside an early renewal for Season 3. Included in the press release was an insane amount of guest stars including Jennifer Lewis, George Takei, Susan Egan, Christian Sol, Keith David, and Kermit the Frog. I go for William! They were pulling out all the stops for the second outing. Then, on the 7th of July, a mere few days away from the season premiere, we were gifted a 2-minute trailer showing exactly what to expect from Part 2. The family were heading out on the road towards the capital of Amphibia, Newtopia, and the journey would be filled with new faces and danger at every turn. After the long, agonizing wait for Season 2, it would finally premiere on July 11th, 2020.
Spring is finally here.
All right, Sprig, new season, new possibilities. I'm ready to blossom into my best self.
In the first episode, we see that Anne is still coping since her fight with Sasha in Reunion. Hop Hop comes home with a family wagon he calls the Fwagon.
The previous owners died in it.
Hop Hop plans to use the wagon
Not calling it that.
to head to Newtopia to see if they can find Anne a way home. Anne is also hoping that on the way they can find her other friend Marcy. While they are gone, Hop Hop hired a frog named Chuck to take care of the farm cause he says a farm left empty is vulnerable and is dangerous.
Left alone to face wildfires, locusts, tornadoes, flaming locust tornadoes. Anyway, here you go.
Anne feels bad that her new family is risking everything to help her, and when she sees Chuck...
Chuck!
Actually, I'm Dave. That's Chuck.
I grow tulips.
She doesn't have high hopes for him, so she goes out to find a way to protect the house. Thanks to Loggle, she grabs everything she needs and the gunk that will awaken the crops with power. A power some would say is left.
I'll take it.
Wait, really? Don't you want to hear the rest of my cryptic warning?
Nope.
Works for me.
So when Anne is reading the house, she ignores an important label and spills the gunk all over the crops, which turns them into monsters. When the planners think they've won, the veggie monsters turn into one giant monster and destroy the house. Anne cries because the monster is destroying everything she worked so hard to protect.
Oh, you just made a big mistake, buddy.
Anne destroys the monster and admits that she awoken the thing so that she could try to protect the house. Since the planners are giving up almost everything to help her, the planners say they have Anne's back no matter what. They bring back Chuck, who fixes the house, and they start to live. But before they leave, Anne asks if they should bring the music box.
No. It'll be safe with my contacts for the time being.
All right, HP. I trust your judgment.
Well, let's get this wagon on the road. No turning back now.
Did we give the key to Chuck?
We're turning back now.
Season 2 takes a very different approach to storytelling than Season 1, in that everything is more focused and a lot more streamlined, with every 4 or 5 episodes following their own mini story arc, which also means this season is going to be a heck of a lot easier to talk about than the previous one, as we won't be hopping all over the place and can pretty much just talk about everything in chronological order. The first 5 episodes of the season are made up of mostly self-contained stories. The main difference being from this point on, the planners are given much more focus, which gives the show more of an ensemble feel rather than everyone just being supporting players in Anne's narrative. We start delving more into each of the frogs and what makes them tick. Hop Pop attempts to fake his way into being a town hero and finds his dreams of performing, and all they're cracked up to be when he learns the company he's working with are robbing towns blind during the performances. Polly has to adjust to being so far from home. Then she and Sprig have to learn how to get along by navigating a deadly trail. There's this sort of spontaneous continuity with Season 2 storytelling, as each episode delivers a completely different experience with new locations and characters. Maybe the planners get straight into the wilderness, or stumble across some ancient ruins, or have a random crossover with Gravity Falls. Yeah, that actually happens, and it's awesome.
Say, Mr. Pons, do you ever get the feeling that we exist simultaneously in multiple parallel universes, completely unaware of the other's very existence?
You been licking yourself again, Frog Seuss?
Caught me again, Mr. Pons.
It's a far cry from Season 1 with its limited setting and enjoyability, but familiar stories, although if you find yourself missing the Wartwood residents, one or two of them end up popping up on the journey here and there. From the beginning, Season 2 strikes you as being a lot more mature than the previous one. Season 2 seems a lot more trusting of its audience and doesn't shy away from what the characters are going through. There isn't a massive tone shift, as there is still a constant and steady stream of jokes about death, but you can also sense that the characters are taking everything more serious as they are now, working towards something. This added layer of maturity also knows we can start to dig into the lore of this world and its history, and they don't waste any time getting to it, as by the second segment of the season, they're already dropping huge bombshells on us, like the fact long ago, Amphibia had steampunk-esque technology in the B episode of the season premiere. The players discovered some ruins, which turns out to be an ancient factory that then attacks them in the end. They cause the whole thing to explode, the family sets off again, as we see a robot emerge from the rubble and start going after them. From that point on, until we reach Newtopia several episodes later, this would feature a quick scene at the very end showing this robot as it followed the family. No one knew what its deal was or why it was following the planners. Was it trying to hunt them down, or was there something else though? We could clearly see it had a few scenes loose screws, likely a malfunctioning error due to, this was one of the big mysteries of Season 2, and for the longest time we really didn't know what to think of it, which is especially funny in hindsight. Remember how I said Anne was coping with the happening in the end of Reunion? Now it's Sasha's turn in episode 4A, Toadcatcher. In the episode, we're introduced to one of the best characters in the entire show.
My name is General Yunnan, Scourge of the Sand Wars, defeater of Ragnar the Wretched, and the youngest Newt to ever achieve the rank of general in the great Newtopian army.
She's on the hunt for Grime, as he's been branded a traitor by Newtopia. Not helping is that since the events of Reunion, Grime has let himself go, while Sasha has been focused on nothing but training. And while they're on the run, Grime gives her a much-needed reality check.
Oh, please! You're not upset because you lost the fight! You're upset because you lost your friend! You're upset that Anne stood up to you, and that things between you will never be the same again.
After an epic fight scene, Sasha and Grime use Yunnan's own ego to defeat her, shoving her off a cliff. Now that he's back in the game, Grime decides instead of retaking the valley, they're going to go higher, building an army to storm Newtopia and becoming the new rulers of Amphibia.
Looks like I've got my own path now, Anne, but it's not over between us. Not even close.
Season 1 left Sasha in a very uncertain place. Toadcatcher saw her double down, kind of cementing how much I really didn't like her. There was still some room for her to change and better herself, but that would only happen with a lot of self-reflection that at this point she was completely unwilling to do. But while one of Anne's friends was only digging a deeper hole for herself, there's another that we still haven't seen yet, Marcy Wu. She's barely gotten a few mentions in Season 1 and was very much another one of Season 2's big mysteries. Was she just as bad as Sasha? I mean, she is the one who found the music box and seemingly had no issues with Anne stealing it. No one had any idea who she'd be or what effect she'd have on the series, and we wouldn't have to wait too long, as on August 15th, 2020, the 6th episode of the season aired, titled Marcy at the Gates. It's been 4 weeks since the planners left the valley, and they've almost arrived at Newtopia. However, Anne is still worried that despite being all over, they've not heard anything about Marcy. Sprig is hesitant about the mysterious third friend.
Maybe that's a good thing. Your last friend was kinda totally evil.
But Anne reassures him that she's nothing like Sasha. We also learn via flashback montage that Marcy is intelligent, but gets so fixated on things that she loses all sense of self-preservation.
One of these days she's gonna get herself killed.
Oh, don't say that!
At last, the family arrives at Newtopia. However, the gates are closed due to a pesky colony of barbarians. Before our heroes are attacked, they're saved by a cloaked figure.
cool Newt.
From the second she shows up, the writers are doing everything they can to make sure the audience falls in love with Marcy, and they do a great job at it as she's one of the most popular characters in the show. She's an overexcitable nerd who loves JRPGs and the found family trope, #relatable. A description that also applies to the average Amphibia enjoyer. The other planters immediately take a shine to Marcy as she impresses Hop Pop with her knowledge of farming, promises Polly that she'll be getting her legs in about 2 months. The planters and Marcy then go on an underground adventure to drive out the barbarians, so they can get into Newtopia. During this, Anne constantly tries to keep Marcy out of harm's way and not let her do anything remotely dangerous until she has to accept that her friend has changed and can take care of herself now, and so the gates of the city open as the planters enter. Later on, Anne and Marcy get some time alone as they both admit that they haven't yet been successful in finding a way home. Anne also reveals that she had found Sasha previously, but they're not currently on the best of terms. The two of them feel clueless about what the next move is, as Sasha was always the one who came up with the plans.
Maybe it's time we started making our own decisions, huh? Yeah! I mean, it's worked out for us so far, right?
Still, they resolve that they'll figure out this together.
The pieces are starting to fall into place. It's time for the game to begin.
This ending left fans guessing as to where the show was heading. They were working towards something, and at the time, it seemed like it would be an all-out war between the frogs, newts, and toads, with each of the girls taking one side. Now, that isn't exactly how this would all play out, but it was clear there was something huge coming, and there would no doubt be plenty of betrayal in the future. With the end of Marcy at the Gates comes the end of the road trip arc, as we then kicked off the Newtopia arc, where the next few episodes would see the planners exploring Newtopia, experiencing the culture, and befriending the locals, all while the show continued fleshing Marcy, as the neurodivergent coding got laid on thick with her troubles in understanding social cues and tendency to shift into hyper-focus mode on specific tasks and puzzles. Episode 7B, the planners check in, we finally get fully acquainted with my favorite character in all of Amphibia, Andreas, who, needless to say, is nowhere near what we were expecting, a running theme of this season. Andreas is a jolly old fellow who loves playing practical jokes and is full of charisma, no doubt helped out by him being voiced by the Disney legend himself, Keith David.
You must be Anne. Sup? Am I saying it right? Sup?
You got it!
When Anne shows him a picture of the music box, Andreas is taken aback when he notices the gems are discolored, as him and Marcy will have to do some research in the archives to get to the bottom of this. So he gives the planners a limitless royal credit card, and the family goes to stay in a fancy hotel. From there, the show mostly takes a break from the story to just let the characters walk around Newtopia, which, while those stories are loads of fun, they don't really require a play-by-play recap. But just because we don't have any new story developments doesn't mean the show is resting on its laurels, as episode 9B, Hoppy Maw, delivered one of the show's most emotional and beloved stories. While Hop Hop sends the kids to get souvenirs from their trip and becomes obsessed with attaining a butterfly teapot for her mother, but she has to win it in the Smashing Crash shopping cart contest, where their main opponents are a tough newt called Priscilla the Killer and her daughter Pearl. In the end, Anne and Sprig win the competition, but Anne gives her prize to Priscilla when she learns the teapot was made by her departed mother. However, Anne doesn't go away empty-handed.
Here, I'd be honored if you gave it to your mom. I'm no famous artist, but I made it myself, and it's one of a kind.
Thank you.
So once again, it's a happy ending all around, right? Well, no. Because out of nowhere, the show slaps us across the face with a heart-shattering ending. Sprig wakes up in the middle of the night to find Anne on the hotel balcony staring at her mother's gift. Sprig then asks about Anne's mom.
In the kitchen, she'd always sing these goofy Thai love songs, and man, was her singing bad. Woof, that woman was beyond tone deaf. You know, the funny thing is, right now, I would give anything just to hear her singing.
Anne is able to calm herself down and takes a seat as Sprig randomly decides to drop this bombshell on us.
Mine passed away when me and Polly were really young. You know, I've always wondered, can you miss someone you never actually knew? That's silly. I mean, of course you can't.
We have reached the mid-season finale, which kicks off with Season 2, Episode 10A, The Sleepover to End All Sleepovers. The night before their meeting with the king to discuss the music box, the Planner kids arrive at the castle for a sleepover.
Me and Sprig's first sleepover!
Better make it a good one. These will be formative memories.
The kids have fun, but Anne and Marcy keep reverting back to whatever Sasha would do as they've never had a sleepover without her. While exploring the off-limits castle basement, they come across an underground garden with a chained-up moss man and a torn-up portrait seeming to depict a younger Andreas with a frog and a toad, both things that would be very important later. The episode ends as Anne tells Marcy they need to find Sasha because she wants to make things right, and this is the point where the show started to worry me just a little, because I was still under the belief that the best thing would be for Anne to let Sasha go, especially since despite her absence, she still had this control over Anne and Marcy. As we saw how all their choices in this episode were based around her, and with the way Anne was acting recently, it seemed like she was dealing with a lot of blame and guilt over what happened between them, which made perfect sense for a character, but I was concerned the show might try and say they were both at fault when all Anne did was defend her family by standing up to someone who had been manipulating her for years. I simply didn't know what the series would end up doing with Sasha and the conclusion it would reach regarding these three girls, because while it is a Disney show and friendship would of course ultimately prevail and should not be in a situation where she is required to forgive Sasha, because most if not all of the work towards reconciling would need to come from the latter's end, let's return to the fun stuff with Season 2 Episode 10B, A Day at the Aquarium. The family and Marcy arrive for their audience with King Andreas, who tells them that the box is a tool for interdimensional travel that his ancestors used to explore other worlds. To get it working again, the 3 gems will have to be recharged at 3 different temples. However, preparations for the quest will take some time which the planters don't have as they have to go back home. Then Marcy makes the suggestion that Anne stayed there as her going back to what would doesn't make sense.
But, I need to go to Wartwood to get the music box. Right, HB?
Technically, yes.
Nonsense. Once Hop Pop gets the box back, we'll just send a servant to pick it up. More efficient that way.
Now, here's where Marcy started to have me really concerned, as it gave me the impression that she was very much an ends justify the means kind of person, someone who would take the most efficient route to a goal, regardless of what moral or ethical boundaries it would cross. To me, this is the first time we truly saw the Marcy who had peer pressured Anne into stealing the music box. So the planners only have one more day together, and they decide to spend it at the aquarium.
Yeah! Let's go have fun and not think about our crippling sadness.
Nice one.
But they and everyone at home were not prepared for a continuity overload, as everything they see reminds them of their past adventures and thus makes them very emotional. In a last-ditch attempt to save the day, they go to a water show, only find that they have a water snake exactly like the one that attacked Anne and Sprig back in Season 1, Episode 1B, Best Friends. Sprig's intensified emotional state causes him to fall into the water.
We've got to get Sprig away from that snake!
Oh, you've got nothing to fear from old Wanda. The gal's afraid of her own shadow.
Ooh, that was a relief.
Oh, no. It's the rays you should be worried about. Yeah, they love the taste of frog flesh.
The family worked together to defeat the Rays with even more callbacks, but with that, the day is over, and it's time for the family to part ways. But then, Marcy thankfully rethinks her earlier statements.
I'm sure I can handle the preparations here by myself. I'll just come pick you up on the way to the first temple.
Thanks, Marcy.
Now go. Follow your heart.
So Anne runs through Newtopia and catches up with her frog family. After a heartfelt reunion, they start the journey back home. Then we get cut back to Marcy.
Always sad to see someone go, isn't it? I have a proposition for you, Marcy, and I think you'll find it very interesting.
The pieces were all falling into place, and this was only the halfway mark, not just of the season, but the show as a whole. While she did end up doing the right thing in the end, Marcy was still a little suspicious, especially with whatever proposition Andrew has had for her. Once more, the fandom were left with so many questions and almost no answers to be found. However, we wouldn't be waiting too long, but after all that heavy stuff, we really needed a break, so it was a good thing that the second half of the season brings us back home to Wartwood. Here However, the show takes a very back-to-basics approach of its storytelling. The main difference here is that it maintains Season 2's more introspective approach, as there are episodes focused on certain town frogs that barely involve the planners at all. We get to explore Ivy's home life, do an anthology not Halloween special, checking on Mayor Toadstool, and the emotional transformation he's undertaken since the Season 1 finale. And just see what's been going on in town, which was very much welcome since by this point we hadn't seen most of these characters in about a year and a half. And it only gets more interesting when Marcy arrives in town. These stories not only allow us to add some more depth to some of the most memorable frogs from the first season, but show how much the town has changed since the pilot because of Anne.
Just be patient and I'm sure you'll fit in eventually. After a lengthy period of regarding you with extreme borderline paranoid suspicion, mind you.
Fair enough.
Though it isn't all relaxing side character exploration, as there was still some crucial plot stuff going on ever since the events following the Bizarre Bazaar. Fans were waiting not so patiently for the moment Anne would discover just what Hop Pop did with the music box after she entrusted him with it. What follows is a difficult and emotional situation, as you completely understand where both Anne and Hop Pop are coming from, and you just hope they can find some way to work it out. In the end, Hop Pop reveals why he panicked so much about the box in the first place.
Sprig and Polly's parents.
Years ago, while he was on a trip out of town, some heroines attacked Wartwood and killed Sprig and Polly's parents, an event which he blames himself for. This is enough for Anne to forgive him, as Hop Pop tells everyone what he found out about the music box, also known as the Calamity Box. And while it seems like everything is back to normal, it would take some time for these two to truly mend their fractured relationship. Now, from here, this stretch of episodes is split between Wartwood episodes and the Three Temples arc. And I want to talk about the Temple episodes together, so we just have one more thing to address. It's been a while since we checked up on the family mechanical stalker. Well, they finally make it to what would in episode 15 be Friend or Frobo. While failing to cause mischief around town, Polly stumbles across the robotic frog in the trash. As we learn, though its deal is. Turns out the robot isn't evil. In fact, quite the opposite. Polly quickly takes a shine to the automatic amphibian, dubbing him Frobo. The two of them hang out as Frobo is very impressionable, copying everything Polly does, which causes plenty of destruction. Once the town discovers Frobo, they get the mob supplies out. Polly is hurt in the scuffle, which causes Frobo to go ballistic. Polly is eventually able to calm him down and takes full responsibility for the dangers. She then asks Hop Pop if they could keep her new friend, promising to be his big sister.
I'm not sure, Polly. Sure seems dangerous. I mean, can it do anything useful?
Show him, Frobo!
Welcome to the family, Mr. Frobo!
So now we have a new member of the Planner Clan. While Frobo himself is such a lovable character, it kind of reminds me of Robo from Chrono Trigger, he doesn't really have much impact on the show overall. What makes him important was how he was used as a tool to push Polly's character forward, as from this point on, she really starts to grow up further, showing just how much better Season 2 is at balancing out the family and making sure they each get substantial development. But now it's time to talk about the Temples arc, where we start building towards the season finale. The temples are based around the principles of mind, heart, and strength, which challenges each of the girls. For the first one, Marcy must force herself to see beyond her tunnel vision and realize that her actions can harm others, as in the end, she sacrifices everything to save the people she cares about, which turns out to be the real test, because yeah, every single one of these features some kind of twist. Now, the three girls are all connected to the gems of the music box, and during significant moments of the series, their eyes often glow with the colors of their respective gems, Anne being blue, Marcy being green, and Sasha being red. However, at each of these temples, once the gem has been recharged, we see the color be drained from the girl's eyes, serving their connection to if that is except for one. The second temple is focused on heart and is built on a snowy mountain, which happens to be guarded by the same new Anne and Sprig met at the Bizarre Bazaar, Valerina.
Fortunate that the music box fell into such average hands. How exactly did it come into your possession?
You know, I don't remember how we got it.
On the trek up the mountain, Anne faces trials that put how far she's come on full display, selfishly giving up her coat and running headfirst into an avalanche to save some strangers without second thought, which are both things early season 1 Anne would not have done. But because of the Valerina calls her disobedient and impulsive, meaning she isn't worthy and stands up to her only to get transported to a little pocket dimension. The new then tries to take the music box by force while making Anne confront all her past mistakes and by extension, the person she used used to be.
You lied to the planters to get out of a day of work?
How do you know that?
But you did steal the music box, did you not?
Anne admits to stealing the box, but then has to save Valerina when she almost falls off the edge.
You were right. I did lie and steal. If that makes me unworthy, fine. Those bad choices were mine, and I'll own them. But making them taught me that it's always better to do the right thing. So that's what I did, regardless of how much I didn't want to.
We have been waiting for someone like you for such a long time.
Valerina reveals this place is the temple and declares unworthy. They start charging the stone, but then Anne hears the screams of her friends and takes the gem before the process is complete, only for it to turn out there was no danger and the family heads back down the mountain.
Maybe Frobo can make us hot chocolate when we get back.
Yay!
Yes, that sounds great.
This episode is the most important one of the Temple arc, as it touches upon a big theme of the second half of Season 2, and coming to terms with her past while learning to love herself and the person she becomes. One of my favorite moments in the entire series comes from episode 18B, Bessie and Michelangelo, which is mostly just a fun episode about the family's pet snail. The subplot is about Marcy eliciting Newtopia's best armory to give Anne a new look. The guy called Bernardo immediately begins asking Anne who she wants to be, a question she doesn't know the answer to. They try a bunch of outfits, but none of them are the right fit. In the end, Anne decides to go with something simple and not too flashy.
I think the reason I don't want a new look is because I'm finally happy with who I see in the mirror right now. So whatever I put on, I just want to be able to see the same me looking back.
There's one more episode before we get into the final temple, as it might be a good idea to check up on what Sasha's doing right now. Episode 17B, Barrel's Warhammer, follows up on Sasha and Grump's plot to take over the world. As they're attempting to get the rest of the Toad population to join them, they're fully on board, but want someone else to lead the rebellion.
Yeah, I don't think so. We love your vision, but no Toad is going to follow the command of a fugitive and his hummus.
Humans. We're called humans.
Sasha learns Anne and Marcy are working together, a fact which enrages her. The oldest captain, called Aldo, awakens and tells them to prove themselves. They must retrieve Barrel's Warhammer.
It's the weapon of the legendary Toad warrior, Barrel the Brave!
Barrel gave his life defending a helpless village from a terrifying beast.
Legend has it that this same beast guards his hammer to this very day.
They discover the hammer is lodged within the head of said beast. Sasha puts her friends' lives at risk, riding the beast back to the tower, but they're coming in too fast, so Sasha and Grime make one final attempt to grab the hammer.
I am not gonna fail! Not while Anne and Marcy are getting by without me!
In the end, they do gain the support of the Toads, but at a cost.
We trusted you, and you didn't care one bit about what happened to us, as long as you got what you wanted.
And I think me and Braddock are done with this. With all of it.
What? Where are you going?
And this is the first time Sasha has ever tried to consider the consequences of her actions, as she genuinely regrets what she did there, which is continued in episode 18B, The Third Temple. Following the trend of other temple episodes, opening with a flashback, this one shows how Anne and Marcy met Sasha. The family enters the Third Temple, where things are really heating up. The first challenge is to make it past these things, but they're too much for Anne to handle alone. Once they're safe, Sasha apologizes and takes responsibility for what happened at Toad Tower, but it is immediately clear how empty her words are for the final room of the temple. They have to fight a rock monster that increases the gravity until only Anne and Sasha are left standing. In the middle of the battle, the two start arguing as Sasha tries to call Anne out for not trusting her.
Well, can you blame me? Oh, why would I trust you? It wasn't just Toad Tower, Sasha. You've been pushing me around my whole life.
I know.
Now this is what we've all been waiting for, a moment of genuine reflection that allows Sasha to see all the damage she caused. It started at the end of her previous episode, but now she is finally experiencing actual character development? The parrot gets knocked down and Anne motivates Sasha to get up and finish this, which she does. Sasha repowers the gem, meaning the music box is fully charged and ready for use.
No. If we turn that thing on, who knows where we'll end up? We should bring it to King Andreas so he can tell us how to use it correctly to get home.
Outside the temple, Anne suggests that she and Sasha try to start over, which she happily agrees to. But of course, there's a twist. This is all just a ploy to get into Newtopia and close to the king, even though Sasha is starting to have second thoughts. The next episode continues Sasha's arc as her and Grime are invited over by Anne, though the planets are still suspicious of her because of that and that. Oh yeah, definitely that. And Sasha still isn't doing herself any favors.
And once we rule Amphibia, I'll get this friendship back under control.
What follows is a very awkward dinner and game night as the planners and Grime try to get along while Sasha struggles with not falling back into her old ways. When Grime's dessert turns deadly, the three girls must work together to defeat a hive of hornets, and by the end, everyone is actually getting along, which once more brings us to the penultimate story of Season 2, Episode 19B, Battle of the Bands. Much like Anne of the Year, this was very much another lighthearted victory romp for the season, before the next episode would bring nothing but trauma and devastation, so let's talk about it. Wartwood is having a Battle of the Bands, as the girls reunite their old group, Sasha and the Sharps. Anne has written her own song about Amphibia, but Sasha takes over and starts changing everything. Anne is quick to point out how it no longer feels like her song.
That's called collaboration, Anne. This isn't collaboration. It's a hostile takeover. Why do things always have to be your way?
Sasha decides that her leaving would be what's best for everyone and ends up teaming up with Toadie, who doesn't know what to do with himself when Mayor Toadstool gives him the day off. While they're practicing Sasha's song Heartstomper, which is a genuine bop if I do say so myself, she comes to find out having someone who automatically agrees with you is kind of boring. Today is surprisingly able to help give Sasha a new perspective, saying to him there's no greater feeling than supporting someone you really care about. The battle commences as the other acts are interesting, but when Anne and Marcy go up, Sasha vents about how much better their act would have been if she was in control.
I know the feeling, but no matter how badly you want someone to succeed, you can't force it. Because sometimes being a good friend just means being there for them when they need it the most.
Anne and Marcy start the song No Big Deal, which recaps Anne's journey in Amphibia, slowly figuring out who she is, and in time coming to see the strange new world as a second home. Once more, a luminous to see just how much she has grown over the past 39 episodes. And this song is really good, I do say so myself. For the end of the song, Sasha runs in and performs a guitar solo, joining her friends for the final chorus. Grime ends up winning in the end, but then Anne has a special announcement to make.
With the box charged, we'll be heading to Newtopia tomorrow for the king to send us home. Everyone, you've all done so much for me, and I'll miss you more than you could ever know.
Ah, shucks.
The episode ends with the entire cast gathering for a group photo, and I want to take some time to pause this right now and just enjoy this moment a few seconds longer, because once we leave this moment, there is no going back.
The episode has some intense final scenes. It might be scary for younger viewers.
Just try to stop me!
The climax of the past two seasons opens up with yet another flashback, this time showing the day the girls took the music box, but from Marcy's perspective. It becomes clear this episode will make us reevaluate everything we thought we knew about this show and this character. Everyone arrives in Newtopia for the girls to be sent home. Just before Anne gives Andreas the music box, Grime sweeps in as he and Sasha begin their takeover, imprisoning Andreas and opening the gate for the Toad army. And that is the final straw for Anne, who says the words I had been waiting for since the first episode of the show.
I'm done listening to you. I'm done trusting you. You're a horrible person, and I am done being friends with you.
Oh, snap.
Sasha tries to send Anne home, only to discover that the music box doesn't work, so she sends everyone to the dungeon, including Lady Olivia. Oh yeah, she's a character in the show, and she will be important in Season 3, but let's not worry about that right now. They're saved by Yunnan.
I am General Yunnan. Her name is Yunnan. She's very important, blah, blah, blah. We don't have time for this. Come on.
And are able to escape the castle, hiding out in a callback to one of the earlier episodes of the season during the Newtopia arc. Everyone feels hopeless as Anne takes charge and motivates the ragtag bunch while they carry out a plan to stop the Toad army. Sasha and Grime discover something truly disturbing as they've accidentally become the good guys in this scenario. The two see Anne and Sprig closing the gate and go to try and stop them, but Anne refuses to listen to anything Sasha has to say. This escalates into yet another sword fight between the two, but this time things are very different. Anne has fully reached her limit with Sasha and is now out for blood. Anne is able to incapacitate Sasha and finish closing the gate, while the others free Andreas. The triumphant music plays as once more the day is safe. But wait, this is only the 13-minute mark, and this episode is 24 minutes long. So, what do they do now? Sasha and Grime are restrained as Anne gives Andreas the music box. But instead of sending the girls home, he decides to drop some exposition on us. The gist of things is that the music box once belonged to Andreas, but it was lost thousands of years ago, and he's been waiting for it to return.
For you see, my ancestors weren't frail explorers. They were glorious conquerors!
He puts the music box in place, and the castle starts to lift into the sky. The ancient factories from the season premiere are activated and start mass-producing an army of robots that descend on the castle. As Andreas reveals, he plans to take over all worlds, starting with Earth, as everyone gets ready to fight when suddenly Marcy jumps in front of them.
Andreas, this wasn't the plan. You said no one would get hurt.
I would have said anything if it meant you deliver the box to me fully charged. Hate to break it to you, kiddo, but you've been duped.
But Marmar, what's he talking about?
So, on Anne's birthday, Marcy was told by her parents that they would be moving away, and in a desperate attempt to not leave her friends, she orchestrated the whole thing to trap them in another world so they could be together forever. And even a year later, this is still hard to watch.
How could you? I've been missing my parents, my life.
But look at how much fun we've had. Look at how much you've both grown. Look at Sprig. I gave you this. I gave you everything. I just didn't want to be alone.
Despite this, everyone wants more band together to take down Andreas' robot army, as True Colors from this point on becomes nothing but glorious action scenes, in between moments that shatter your entire being and leave you a shell of your former self. Andreas breaks up the fight and tries to kill Polly.
I will save you! Oh, look at that! One of my robots must be defective.
He tries to crush Polly again, but wasn't accounting for a manifestation of the show's themes of change and why Matt Barley chose to make this series about talking frogs in the first place, because...
Guess who just got her leg? Oh!
My little baby's got legs!
This is weird!
Ever since the show began, one of the biggest questions was, will Polly ever get her legs? And after so many hints and build-up throughout Season 2, the answer we received was a resounding no duh. With her new appendages, Polly takes back the music box, and it seems the tide of the battle is changing, until Andreas grabs Sprig and holds him out the window, so Polly puts back the music box as Anne begs Andreas to put Sprig down.
That's the thing about friends, isn't it? The more you love them, the more it hurts when they go. Allow me to demonstrate.
Sprig falls to his death, as we're treated to a montage of Anne and Sprig's friendship. As she breaks down, her grief causes her to undergo a full transformation, as everyone looks on in shock and awe. And I feel jealous for anyone who hasn't seen this show, because you're about to witness the most awesome thing you have and will ever see. In this new power-up state, Anne changes full force at Andreas while an orchestral edition of No Big Deal plays in the background. Anne dodges each counterattack with godlike speed and precision, despite how much fun it is to watch her effortlessly knock down the giant New around. Eventually, the power runs out, causing Anne to fade. Hop Up and Polly rush to Anne's side, trying to get her up.
Anne! Sprig?
Yeah, while all this was going on, Marcy jumped out the window and called her giant bird Joe Sparrow so she could swoop down and save Sprig. And I mean, of course Sprig was fine. As hardcore as some of the fights are in this show, we are still on the Disney Channel here. I mean, they would never allow a child character to be harmed like that, especially not on screen. Anyway, Andreas tries to strike Anne when she's down, only to be distracted by Marcy activating the music box. Sasha tells Anne to get to the portal while she and Grime hold Andreas back, but Andreas makes quick work of them and then charges for the box.
Marcy, hurry! I just need to...
Now look what you've made me do.
I'm sorry for everything.
Marcy collapses, dropping the music box and transporting Anne into planters.
Oh my frog! What is this place?
Home.